Welcome to the Possibility Action Network podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Middleton, aka Possibilityman. We're committed to bring you guests who strive to better people's lives and serve as a force for good in the world. Today, our guest is Waikiki Wonder. He's the self-described jack of all trades and a master of some. He grew up in Honolulu, Hawaii. As he puts it, he has been a gypsy interstate trucker and founder of Semi-Pro Express. He is also an artist, a musician, and a licensed maritime pilot. Waikiki, affectionately called Wix Kicks by his friends, welcome to the show today.
Hey, glad to be on here, and I'm really glad we could get together and do this. So, yeah, have you ever been to the islands?
Yes, I have been to Honolulu once. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I really enjoyed Honolulu a great deal. But first, Kicks, let me make this note to our viewers and our listeners. Follow, like, and share this podcast wherever you find it. Your support matters and is appreciated. Yeah, as I was saying, though, I enjoyed Honolulu a great deal, went to some of the shopping centers, and I still have a backpack that I bought in Honolulu some years ago. So, yeah.
Oh, cool. And maybe you're going to come again and visit the outer islands, maybe, huh?
Yeah, I tell you what, that's certainly on my bucket list. I may very well do that. So what was it like for you growing up in Honolulu and being exposed to other parts of Hawaii?
You know, I got to say I was lucky being born here in the islands. It's a special place, as everybody knows that, So, it's just the fact that, we are in a world by ourselves. We're like 2,000 something miles away from any nearest continent. And we grow up here in a different way. We have something called what we call aloha. You probably learned about aloha. It's like treating others the way you want to be treated. Just being nice, respectful to others. So yeah, I grew up here in the islands, modest family, modest home in town, and I kind of set out on my own with my buddies in the neighborhood and doing our own thing. And you know what was our Bible when we were growing up? This is crazy, but our Bible for our young bunch of gang that we had was the magazine Popular Mechanics.
Oh, okay.
Back then in the 50s and the 60s, there were so many inventions in that magazine that we copied them all. We started building guillotines and catapults and fire flamethrowers and all that kind of stuff, and hang gliders. It was all being talked about and invented back then. So we followed that magazine like, it was our Bible, and that's how we learned how to build stuff. So
okay.
It was kind of an adventurous life, yeah.
I got you. Is that magazine still in publication as far as you know?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought I've heard of it before. Yeah. Yeah. So what was it like, being able to go to the beaches? Or let me ask the question differently. As a child, were you able to go to the beaches whenever you want?
Actually, yes. I grew up on the countryside. So my father was a fisherman. He's a boat builder. He was a diver. So I kind of learned early in my life about diving, getting into the water. So the island is surrounded by ocean. So I was in the water, like I'd say almost 24/7, 365, because we lived down by the water, down by the stream. And then as I got older, I could venture off with my buddies. We'd walk over the next mile down into Waikiki, and the surf and the swimming and the fishing. So yeah, I grew up in the water, and we have a term here in the islands called waterman. If you meet certain criteria of being in the ocean, you can surf, you can paddle, you can dive for your own food, and I was a rescue swimmer when I was growing up. So yeah, I was in the water a lot.
So did you start surfing early, or when did that become a thing for you, surfing?
My surfing life started, I was probably in the 4th, 5th grade. Everybody starts around that time. That early, and you start swimming. I didn't have any formal swimming lessons until I was probably in the 4th grade. And yeah, you start venturing off with your buddies, and everybody goes surfing down in Waikiki, the perfect spot to learn how to how to surf, So
Yeah.
my surfing life started all the way back in early elementary school, and I think I finally got out of it a couple of years ago. And then it's popular now is called stand-up paddling. Stand up on a surfboard with a long paddle, and you catch waves that way. So
Mm.
that's been my thing lately.
I see. What was your looking back, at your early life? I know, as I said in your introduction, you've done a lot of things, and maybe we'll touch on some of them. But what was your ambition as a child? Looking back, what did you want to do?
My father says, boy, you need to find something that has job security and retirement and pension, And of course, you're young, you don't know what the heck he's talking about. So he says, job security. I said, okay, I'll go drive a hearse because people are always dying. And, he kind of almost gave me a slap. But,
Yeah.
he was impressing on me the fact about retirement, pension, that kind of stuff. And when you're young, you don't know what that means,
Yeah.
So, but my probably early in life, I started out as a gifted artist from when I was in the first grade. And I knew where I was going to go with the art. By the time I was in fourth, fifth, sixth grade, my art had excelled rapidly. I was far ahead of all the other kids in my class. And I think 7th, 8th, 9th grade, I was into mechanical drafting and architecture.
Mm.
That's where I was going to go. I wanted to be an architect or drafting, some kind of a commercial artist.
Okay.
I did start doing early on life. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I want to continue with your career, then we'll come back to your book in a moment. But
Sure.
but you've done some other things. In fact, were you drafted in the U.S. military, or were you considering it? You told a story about that. I just want to be reminded of what that was.
This is crazy. In 1968, that's when I graduated from high school. The Vietnam War was really going strong, and there Lyndon Johnson was the president. He drafted all of the National Guard, every state, into the Army. And I was part of that group. Okay, my buddies in high school, everybody cut out a class one day to go join the Marines and Navy, whatever. I went National Guard. But then when it came down to the final physical, I was ready to go to Vietnam. But then I got a scholarship for college for drafting, mechanical drafting and architecture. So I thought, hey, I'll go try that. I'll go to California and go look into it. But that didn't work out. And I still wanted to go to Vietnam. All my classmates, all my friends were there. And my thing was to go to Vietnam. But then they failed me in the physical test because of my hearing. Because of, they said I had what they call selective hearing. And, I was like, hey, what's wrong with your ears? I said, well, I can hear stuff other people can't hear. And they said, well, I don't know. We don't know if we can have you with this. I said, no, my ears are great. I can hear good. I can hear stuff nobody else can hear.
Right.
And so they declined me, and I was actually bummed.
Yeah.
I was 6 feet, strapping, 0% body fat, and I was ready to go to Vietnam. And till today, even that's like one of my biggest regrets that I did not get to go to war. But back, if you remember, in '68, the whole nation was on fire and protests all over the place. And cities were burning out because of this war. But I still wanted to go, so I ended up I was left out. So
that wasn't your path for sure. We're going to get into your hearing in a little bit because you do hear some stuff. But what got you into the trucking business? Because I found that story fascinating about trucking and what you've done.
Good question. When I was in California, I was 18, 19 years old. I went to Whittier College for my architecture and drafting thing, and I had a job at Texaco Refinery where they make gasoline, and one thing led to another. They put me on this oil tanker, and I started driving a truck. And next thing you know, here I am, a young guy from Hawaii, driving all over Southern California. And it's like, wow, I like this. I was going out to the deserts, out to Arizona, out to Nevada. That's what got me into trucking, and I stuck with it. I kept driving up there, and I'm an adventure type of guy, so I like to go down roads I've never been down before.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
one of my first loads from Long Beach, California, was out to this place called Bora, which is out in like the Sahara Desert. Some desert out there in Death Valley is what it's called.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the excitement of going down a road I've never been before, just to see stuff, and being from Hawaii, I'm getting paid to go drive all over the place. And
Yeah.
as of today, Stephen, I've been in the trucking industry for 53 years.
Wow. That's a
How long I've
long
had my
time.
license? I drove in the mainland for about 10 years off and on. I was a gypsy on the interstate going California to New York City and up to Seattle. And I did all 48 states and Canada and Mexico. And I was back in the islands here. I owned a trucking company.
Okay.
And, it just branched off from there. So today I drive part-time for a friend of mine. He has this trucking company. So yeah, I'm still doing that. I'm still, jamming gears and
Mhm.
part of that whole lifestyle. So
I got you. Sounds like you enjoy it. So, what does a maritime pilot do, and how did you get involved in that vocation?
that's a great question. There's a lot of folks out there have no idea that big ship out on the ocean, that ocean liner, the container ships and oil tankers. A lot of people don't realize that for that ship, that vessel, to come into any harbor, any commercial harbor around the world, or to leave the harbor, they have to have somebody on board that bridge, up on the top of the bridge, with knowledge of that harbor, your license
Mm.
for that harbor. So these guys are called pilots. Okay, now this goes all the way back to the days of Jesus.
Wow.
It was because you want to have somebody on that vessel guiding you in who knows where the reefs are, where the waves are, the power of the tugboats that are going to come and assist you in there, where Pier 51 Alpha is, or Pier 19C. The captain on the ship has no idea where these places are. And
Mm.
you don't want that ship to plow into some pier, damage the harbor, block the harbor entrance. So it's a worldwide law, maritime industry, that you have a pilot on these ships. And in the maritime industry, the highest echelon you can go, the highest step on the ladder is a harbor pilot, ship pilot.
Wow.
You
Okay.
work your way up from captain or steward or whatever, or deckhand, all the way up to captain, and then from there you jump up to pilot. So the ship pilot, and then the next one behind him is a pilot boat captain. And that's what I did. I was, you're running, it's like a water taxi out on the ocean. You're chasing down these 900-foot ships, and you have to come alongside. The ship never stops. They're moving along at 12 knots. It's pretty fast. They drop this ladder over the side of the ship, a rope ladder. Now
Mm.
you are the pilot. You have to get up that ladder. So I'm going to bring the pilot boat alongside. You're going to have to wiggle your way up this ladder. Some of these ladders are 30 or 40 feet straight up. It's not slanted like a house type. It's straight up.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was in the maritime industry for 24 years as a pilot boat captain and a pilot observer.
Wow.
And it's exciting life, but
Mm.
very, very dangerous.
Yeah. Oh.
We only have
Sounds.
to work 7
Yeah.
days,
Yeah. Well,
7,
sounds.
24.
Yeah. Sounds like you've had a very exciting life for sure, and done some
Yeah,
exciting things. Yeah.
I was lucky. Not everybody gets to be into that kind of a world, and it's about boat handling and can you handle yourself at zero dark 30? You're coming alongside a 900-foot ship in
Yeah.
25-foot sea.
Wow.
Can you handle it?
Whoa. Yeah. Okay. So I want to get into your book now, and I want to first ask you just a global question about it, and then we'll dig inside of the book with some things
Sure.
about it. Okay. So firstly, why did you write this book? Something told me. Why did you write this? And with the subtitle, Against All Odds. We'll deal with that as well later. But why did you write this book? Kicks?
Great question. As you know, you read the book.
Yeah.
I was born with this gift of hearing the voice of the Holy Spirit.
Hmm.
And I didn't know nothing about it as a kid. It just the voice kept talking to me, go help over here, go over there. And, oh yeah, somebody's drowning or somebody's stuck in a fire. And I enter these situations totally confident nothing's going to happen to me and I'm going to come out of that incident unscathed, unscratched, and save the person I went to help. So this was happening for my first 40 years. I did not tell anybody. I only told two of my pastor friends back in the 80s. Why me? Why is this happening? Why am I hearing this? There's a voice telling me, and the angels are talking to me, guiding me through things. Well, 1991, I'm what, 40 years old? Two of my pastor friends kept saying, brother, you need to come to church. You have a gift. You need to get up on a podium and share this with our congregation. Now, these are two ministers from two different churches here in the islands, and they knew I had this gift. So they kept saying, you need to come talk about it. You need to write a book. You need to share your experiences with the Holy Spirit. And I declined. It was like, okay, I don't even know how to type. I'm not a public speaker, and I declined their offers for about 2 years. So in 1991, state of Hawaii got hit by a hurricane, Hurricane Iniki. And I was already forewarned about this hurricane, that it was coming in August of 91. Somebody told me we're going to have a hurricane. And it actually happened on the day I was on duty in the harbor on the pilot boat. And in a big storm, if that storm is coming directly to your shores, your harbor, you got to evacuate that harbor, get all the big ships out of the harbor so it doesn't wreck the harbor. Say the ships break loose from this mooring and get washed against another pier or another ship. So we had like 5 900-foot ships in Honolulu Harbor the morning of the hurricane. And I was on duty and I was scared. I knew I was going to get it, because going out into the eye of a storm, going out into the eye of a hurricane is crazy. Okay, not everybody's going to do this, but it was my job to follow the ship out, and the pilot's on the bridge. He has to come off of the ship. So we're going through 20, 25-foot seas. It was really gnarly out there. But one of the waves hit the pilot boat on the port side. And when I looked up, and I'm in the pilot boat by myself, it's a big cabin. The windows are open, the doors open. When I looked up on my left, I saw this wave about to wipe me out. All I said was, oh shit. And it hit me in the pilot boat upside down over. Kaboom, kaboom. And it was like God was watching my situation at that very second. An air pocket formed inside the cabin of the vessel. The only thing that wet was my right shoulder as I went against the window. And it was like an air pocket formed inside the vessel in the cabin. And then about 5, 6 seconds later, the boat tumbled like this and came right back up. And it was like, oh, and the engines are still running. The 2 diesel motors are still running. So I was able to gun the engine, head far out to sea, and get these. We had 5 pilots, 1 on each ship, and we had to go miles out to sea in this heavy, heavy ocean, 25, 30-foot seas. Getting back into the harbor was another spooky situation. Well, after we get back into Honolulu Harbor, this is 9/11, September 11, 1991. Hurricane Iniki hits the islands. After we get back into the harbor, we close the harbor down now. Everything's locked. No ships can move. I actually went into our living quarters. We have a living quarters because you're on duty for 24 hours. It's kind of like a fire station. I got down on my knees, Stephen, for the first time ever in my life. I knelt down by our bed and said a prayer of thanks. Because really, I should have been the first statistic for that storm. I should have been the first fatality. But God was watching my situation, as it always happens. And angels are with me watching. And bringing that boat back up with the engine still running, and I was calm, about the whole thing when it happened. But I got down on my hands, on my knees, and said a prayer of thanks. So here's the answer. Here's the response that came back.
Okay.
It was God's voice. It was the voice of the Holy Spirit. You have been asked to write about your experiences. You have been asked to talk about your experiences. What are you waiting for? And got the message loud and clear that night, man. And I said, okay. And Thomas, okay. Anyway, ended the prayer. And by now, the whole city of Honolulu is without electricity. So I'm sitting there with flashlight, pencil and paper. I kind of felt like Abraham Lincoln writing out a story in the dark. But so that the book started that night.
Wow.
And because I was told that, I was asked by two different ministers, you need to share your experiences.
Uh-huh.
And I waited 40 years to do this.
I got you.
The first 40 years, Stephen, I didn't know who to talk to. I was a young boy growing up when this whole thing started, when I was like 8 years old.
And I want to come back to that in a moment, but I want to dive into this voice that you hear.
Yeah.
Help us understand what that's like. Is it like hearing my voice now, or is it like, what is it like?
That's a really good question. I cannot explain the sound of the Holy Spirit's voice or God's voice. When I first realized I had this gift, when it comes to me, I know who's talking to me. And it's about, if it's only going to be about something good. Okay, if it's about something bad or evil, then it's not God. And the voice that came to me when I was young, when I was 8 years old, 9 years old, 10, it's a man's voice. Okay. And I'm trying to think of whose voice, in the, as far as movie stars, whose voice matches.
Was it Morgan Freeman's?
Good question. Yeah. No, not Morgan. I thought about that, So the voice comes to me, and then when it rotated into my angels. Everybody's born with angels. You have an angel on your shoulder. I have three. I have three angels on my shoulder. Two are women, and one is a guy. And other people have seen them. If they're hovering over me, this is a blessing I had from when I was born. So a lot of times it's be the voice of that angel talking to me, warning me, or telling me what's up, or danger ahead. And a lot of times the voice might change. Okay, it might be somebody's voice that I know. And like I read in the Bible somewhere, if God wants to get a message to you, wants to contact you, you're going to hear it in the voice of somebody you know. And then I'm going to say, whoa, that's Marlene's voice. And, listening to the message. Or that's Linda's voice. So the voices change. But when I'm in a situation where I'm not listening, I'm stubborn, the Holy Spirit voice will jump in there and say, hey, you need to listen. This has been going on for the last 73 years now.
Wow.
So why, getting back to your question, why did I write the book? It's because of that incident in the hurricane. And it was time to finally share this gift that I've been born with. Okay.
Let me ask you, have you ever had someone say to you, hey, you Kicks, can you ask God to give you a message for me? Can you do that?
I've had a lot of people ask me that. Can you save my daughter? Or can you help my dog? He's going to die. I've had a lot of people, sometimes I can. Sometimes it won't happen. Sometimes it's just too late,
Okay.
To help somebody, to try and save somebody. Yeah. But I've had that request many times. Can you pray for my brother? Can you pray for my mother? Can you help my son out? That kind of
So Hicks, why you? How would you answer the question, why me? Why does God
I asked that question a lot to myself. Why me? And then I came up with the answer is, well, why not me?
That's a good one. That's right. That's a good,
but I know I sent you some stuff about how I really found out about this gift was when I had a talk with my mother. This is 40 years after I was 41. This is the incident with the hurricane. When I went to her and said, Mom, what do you know about this gift that I have? Who else in the family has it? Any of our uncles, grandparents, anybody? And she said, no, I was the only one born with this gift. So, it's said in the Bible, God already has your number. He's already got you picked out way before you were born. He has plans for you. So evidently I was being shaped up. and to be a team member for God as what I would call a ground angel here on earth, because there's a lot of times, to help somebody out of a situation. God knows it's happening. He needs somebody here on earth to intervene,
Yeah.
get involved with these situations. That's why I was the first person I rescued when I was 8 years old. I was still a baby.
Yeah. Okay. I want to go back to when you were young, when you were just a kid, as you just
Yeah.
mentioned. And in the book, you talk about you and your friends were just kind of messing around, with doing what children do. And then something happened. And tell us about that story. That very first time you were in trouble, they were in trouble, and the first time you heard that voice.
Okay, the very first time I heard that voice was at a church picnic. I was 8 years old.
Okay.
And I had been, lots of old folks would come up to me out of nowhere from when I was 5, 6, 7 years old. They said, "Boy, you have a gift. There's angels around you, and God is going to be speaking to you pretty soon. And you need to listen." And then these folks would turn and walk away. And I was like, what does that mean? And so when I was 5, 6, 7 years old, this is happening on a regular basis. If I was my dad would take me to the barbershop, and the lady cutting my hair was saying, "Son, you're especially blessed. God is going to be talking to you. And you get older and you need to listen." Well, this went on 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old. And these folks they'd show up at the bus stop, old people, and they say, "God's going to be talking to you. You have an aura about you. You have angels around you." And I'm thinking, okay, what's an aura? And the only angel I knew lived on top of our Christmas tree for 2 weeks, and then he shoved them back in the closet. That's the only thing I know about an angel. So this was happening on a regular basis. And then that one incident in the book, I was 8 years old, God's voice came to me.
What was your reaction to that? What was your reaction when you heard that? Were you thinking, this is God's voice? Or were you thinking, what is this?
I was thinking, what is this? But I followed the orders. I followed the command. It wanted me to swim out we're at a church picnic, but a whole bunch of kids. And it just said to swim out to this certain area. And rather than question it, I just did it. And I wasn't a swimmer. At 8 years old, I could dog paddle, and I swam out to this area. And then I got caught in the current, and I was a little scared. And the voice just kept assuring me, "You'll be safe." Really soft voice, okay? Really soft but commanding voice. Then it instructed me to dive down. And now I'm about 25 yards from shore, and I'm only a kid. And I dove down into this area that was about 12 feet deep. And the voice kept talking to me. "You can do this. Do not be afraid. I'm with you." It kept guiding me. And I didn't question it. I just followed. And when I dove down, the water was kind of murky. I was losing my breath, I wanted to go for air, but I saw something on the bottom of the ocean floor. And I thought, whoa, what is that? So I went down some more. I started kicking some more, and lo and behold, I went right smack into the face of a body.
Oh my.
It was Alfred, kid in our picnic. Nobody knew he was missing. Nobody knew he had drowned. And I was scared. I shot back up for air, screaming. I'm trying to scream to everybody on shore. Nobody was hearing me. You ever tried screaming and no sound was coming out? That's what was going on. So the voice calmly told me, "Go back down and get him." And I went right back down and got him. I dove down. The body was gone. It was moving with the current. Went back up for air, chose another spot, and it just kept saying, "Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. You can do this." And then I saw the body below me, and I got him, and I can barely swim. I don't know how to carry a dead body, right? I'm 8 years old. So I picked the kid up. His eyes are rolled back. His face is purple, and I had him on my shoulder right here, and all this foam was coming out of his mouth all over my shoulders. And Stephen, I don't know where I got the strength from. I was able to get him on my shoulders and swim all the way up, and then swim him into shore. And the voice of God kept talking to me. "You can do this. Do not be afraid." And When I finally got to shore, I was screaming for the parents at the church picnic, the adults. There was a lifeguard over there. I just dropped the body right there on the edge of the water.
Uh,
Rolled over. I was exhausted. And here come, those parents and everybody's trying to save this kid. They're doing chest compressions and, all this gurgling sound was coming out of the kid's body. And I'm laying right next to him and I'm like looking at this, like, holy shit. Basically I was still a baby. 8 years old, I was still a baby to go see something. That was the first time.
wow.
And then my question was that day after the ambulance came, my question was, how come none of the parents in our church picnic knew Alfred was missing? How come nobody knew he wasn't around? How come nobody knew that he was drowned? Only God knew that answer.
Yeah.
The next question was, how did I know where to go and swim and to find his body? Only God knew it. Why was I picked? Because I was being groomed from way before I was born to listen to the voice of God. God already had my number.
Wow.
Since the time I was born.
Yeah. Yeah. And you tell another story. You were a little older, but you're still a boy. You and some of your friends were playing in a very dangerous area. What happened there? And tell us about that voice again.
Okay. So as I'm growing up, now when I saved this kid, I was 8 years old. Okay. And what's funny about that incident, a couple of days later, my friends and I are rolling dice up at this camp, this Filipino camp. And this man walks up to me, he grabs the dice, he holds the dice, he looks directly at me, an older Japanese fellow. He says, son, you did good. You answered the call of your father. He's very pleased with you, and he's going to be calling you again. Because you listened, because this boy is alive. God will be calling you more often because now you know the sound of his voice. Then the guy rolls the dice and he walks away. And I'm like, wait. I didn't tell anybody about what happened at the beach. How do you know about this? Because I never told anybody. I didn't even tell my mother. So he just looked at me and smiled. He said, God will be calling you again. You did good. And he disappears. This even has happened so many times. Strangers would come up to me and tell me how good I did in that last rescue or this and that, So that was when I was 8. When I was 9 years old, or maybe I was 10, a bunch of us were out skin diving with our spears. We're young kids. We're off on our own. There's this place called Black Point on the backside of Diamond Head. It's Black Point because it's black lava. And it's a kind of a, ritzy area, nice homes and stuff. Well, there's these lava tubes that go under the land over there in the ocean. It's lava tubes that can travel for, hundreds of yards. On a very shallow, low tide day, one of my friends found this entrance to this cave, an underwater cave. So, we're young boys like, whoa, wow, okay, let's check it out, So that became our hidden camp, so to speak. And we play in there all the time. Well, this one day, we were not watching the weather. We were out there diving and we decided to go into this lava tube, which is underwater. And you dive down into the lava tube, you swim a little bit of ways. It's kind of spooky. It's very spooky. And then you come up into this, like a cavern. There's this big cave. And it's like probably 6 feet high. And shelves of sand, and it's like, wow, this is a cool clubhouse for us. Well, this one day, the ocean outside got gnarly, and we were not watching. We were in there, the 3 of us. The cave, the lava tube filled up with water. And we were caught. We were going to drown. The water went all the way up to the top of the cave. I was just able to get one last breath of air. And this voice just came to me and says, do not be afraid. We'll get you out of this. Do not be afraid. And inside of this cave, it was like being in a toilet bowl. You're going around and around like in a washing machine. And you get bumped against the lava tube, you're getting cut up and scraped up. And it was, you didn't know where the entrance was. You didn't know how to get back out. And then this voice just kept saying, "Do not be afraid. We'll get you out of this." So now I'm getting becoming aware of this voice because it's been talking to me. Well, like somebody flushed the toilet, the water just went right out.
Mm.
And out I came, I shot out, but I didn't see my friends, my two other friends. So I went right back in. I got caught in there again. The water filled up in the cave and I was like out of air. I felt around for them. They were gone. What happened was all three of us got flushed out on that first wave when the water sucked out. They were further out to sea. They made their way to shore and we eventually hooked up and met each other, but I told them, oh man, I went back in again for the second time to find you guys. So now this is grooming me, Stephen. This voice of when I'm in trouble, I know what to hear for. It's the angels, it's going to be God's voice saying, don't worry, we'll get you out of this.
Wow.
So now I'm like 10, I guess, and then it kept happening. It was like I was it was an on-the-job training every day. Right after that, I had an incident. My friends and I were riding our bicycles. I was probably 10. And we're in a race from one hamburger stand to the next one that was up the hill. Whoever gets there first, the loser has to buy soda or can. While I was in this bicycle race, this voice came to me again. Help them, help them. And I'm listening to this and like, what? And instead of going straight up this road to where the store was, the hamburger stand, something made me turn to the left. I could hear this screaming, and I'm just on my bicycle. And I knew where I was headed for. This place I was headed for, I did not like. I was scared because there was these two dogs in there that was just so vicious and ugly and mean. It looks like those two dogs in that first Harry Potter movie. I mean, they were wicked. And I thought, oh no, I don't want to go over there. Well, what happened was, in the neighborhood, there's these two old ladies, Jehovah's Witness. They're walking around the neighborhood handing out their Watchtower magazines. These two dogs broke loose, jumped out of the fence, and were chasing down these two ladies. They were screaming, and this voice is telling me, help them, help them. And so I turned my bike down this one lane, and yeah, the dogs are running, the women are scared, and I was able to get to them, two Filipino ladies, two aunties. I was able to jump off my bike, throw them onto the roof of a parked car that was happened to be right there.
Wow.
Now the dogs are coming after me, and I'm trying to backpedal, walk up backwards on the trunk of the car with my bicycle, keeping the dogs away from me. The ladies are screaming and they're terrified, and I was able to, push back the two dogs. These two big vicious dogs, and I mean, I was 10 years old, so they're big and vicious. So I was able to save them, and you know what saved me? My friend who I was racing with with our bicycles. He saw what was happening. He came over there. Next thing I know, I saw two big hollow tile bricks come flying out of nowhere, bonked the two dogs on the head. They both had a headache.
Yeah.
So here I was, sent there to save these two old ladies, Jehovah's Witness. And I'm a Mormon kid, right? I grew up Mormon. So there's no boundary when you're going to help somebody. So I'm helping these two Jehovah's Witness ladies, put them on the car. And then my friend comes out of nowhere and gets these two big hollow tile blocks and covers the dogs in the head. Well, that was another experience on listening that when I'm communicating, I'm going to hear it.
Yeah.
And it just kept happening. It kept happening. And 12 years old, 14 years old, 15 years old. And after each incident, some stranger out of nowhere would come up to me and said, "You did good."
Yeah. Well, I got a couple of favorites that I want to pick, and then I'm gonna let you pick a few of yours, okay, from your book. One was, I think, what's that race called? The crew race, when you're in these small boats and you have pedalers, and then there was a race in Hawaii, then a race. Start with the race in Hawaii. Tell us about that. First of all, what is it like to be a member of the crew on one of those boats?
Oh, it's camaraderie, it's friendship. I mean, you're tight. Canoe paddling is a big thing here in the islands. Okay, a lot of us start when we're young. Some folks start when they're in their 20s or 30s. But I started. It was a summer between sixth grade and seventh grade. I was 12 years old
Mm.
when I started into canoe paddling. And so that story you're talking about, there is a big race, like the final race of the season, where you race in the island from the island of Molokai back to Oahu. It's, I don't know, 40-something mile race. And I was a young kid. I was invited to go along and watch as an observer, ride on the escrow boat. You go up to the island of Molokai and then get the canoes ready. And then there's a 9-man team. There's 6 guys in the canoe and 3 relief paddlers. This happened the day this race happened. It was 1966. It was the worst conditions ever for that canoe race. It was 20-foot seas. It was gnarly. And, 1 second you're in the escort boat. And these escort boats back there were like 50, 60 feet long. So you're way up on a swell and the canoe is way down below in the trough. And then next thing you know, the canoe is way up there. It was really bad.
Mm.
Well, the incident you're talking about is in a long distance race, you have 6 guys paddling, you have 3 relief paddlers riding on the escort boat. So it's time to make a change. So you're going to relieve the guys in the boat. So the 3 guys, the escort boat goes ahead of the canoe, drops these 3 guys in the water, and the canoe comes along, and the guy in the canoe jumps out, and the fella in the water jumps into the canoe, and the canoe keeps going. The canoe doesn't stop. Well, in this one incident, it was so bad. The conditions were so bad. The escort boat ran over all 3 guys.
Mm.
Okay, so 2 of them got separated, went one way, and this other guy, he was injured. The waves of the boat just separated everybody. So now, I'm the youngest guy on the escort boat. I'm 16 years old and fit, and I was already trained as a rescue swimmer. So the captain, this old Japanese man, he's looking at me, and without saying anything, he says, I could see by his eyes that he wanted me to go in there and go get that guy. And so I grabbed the life ring, jumped over the side, and went to go rescue this guy. Now, this is an open ocean rescue, Stephen. I am like 12, 15 miles away from any land.
Mm.
Heavy seas, 20-foot something seas, And I make my way to the guy, I'm dragging my life ring, and I turn around, the escort boat is gone. Because the seas are so big. The boat went one way, I went another, and I'm just a little speck in the water now. So I find the guy, he's panicking, he wants to pull me under, he's trying to hit me and everything. I mean, this guy is like, he was in bad shape, And I gave him the life ring, and then I thought, oh, now what? Now there's no escort boat. Now what? So his voice is talking to me. Don't worry, you'll be okay. Don't worry. And I'm looking at Oahu's 50 miles that way, and Molokai is about another 12 miles that way. I'm thinking, okay, the current is going this way. If I swim that way, the current will wash me down this way. So I made plans to drag this guy 12 miles. And I'm only 16 years old, but eventually I said, okay, you got me in this, get me out of it. Now I'm talking to my age.
Right.
Within a few minutes, the escort boat found us. And now you try to climb in an escort boat, any kind of boat in rough seas, it's almost impossible. You're just a little thing in the water, and the boat's going all over the place, And what, Stephen, the water calmed down for a split second. The water went flat. I was able to get this guy up the ladder and then get myself up the ladder. But I was actually prepared to swim the 12 or 15 miles I needed to.
Wow. Yeah.
And I was calm during the whole thing. So after that rescue, I'm kind of upset because this guy I rescued did not say thank you. He was upset with me the whole time until we got back to shore. So maybe a day later, I'm sitting up on Diamond Head Lookout thinking, why did I do something like that? I could have died. A tour bus shows up. It's up on the lookout. This guy, all in white, walks off the tour bus, comes right up to me, and he says, son, you did fine. We were watching you the whole time. And he knew I was upset because of what happened with this guy I rescued. You know, the guy didn't even want to talk to me after I saved his life. So he said, son, you did good. You know, we're watching over you. You're going to be called on again.
Mm.
And I was
Wow.
like, what the hell did this guy know about this? He turns around. The tour bus had already left, and this guy vanishes.
Whoa.
Like,
whoa.
no,
Whoa.
Steven,
Yeah,
this
you
didn't
got a lot
happen.
of reassurances that you were doing the right thing. Did you do any
Yeah.
racing in foreign countries? Did you do any racing in Japan, for example?
Raced in China, raced in Singapore, raced in, oh man, all kinds of, all around the West Coast. Canoe paddling has evolved into a worldwide sport. We're just waiting for them to put it into the Olympics.
Okay.
So,
Were you involved in any rescue efforts in Japan with any crew member who got in trouble, or any other country?
actually, it was in China.
It was in China. Okay.
In China, and another time it was in the Philippines.
Mm.
But you know, I didn't know that this gift I have, that God's watching over me or angels, I didn't know it would follow me to a foreign land.
Yeah.
I just thought this was a Hawaii thing.
Yeah.
And I got into an incident in China. In fact, one of those incidents was me. I was jogging through Hong Kong town and early one morning, and traffic there goes in a different, opposite from the United States. And so when you go across the street, go across the highway, you always look to the left because that's the car that's going to hit you first, right?
Okay.
But the traffic was coming from my right, and this tour bus is about to wipe me out.
Mm.
And something grabbed me and made me jump back to the curb. My shoes are still out there in the road getting run over. It was that close. But I had an incident in China, I had an incident in the Philippines, and that's when I knew that, wow, this gift that I have travels with me.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, it was obvious when I was an interstate trucker. On the interstate, I saved so many people stuck in accidents and car fires, a semi truck on fire. One time, I had this family in Ohio that caught in a snowdrift, and I was passing by, and all I could see was these glare of red taillights under the snow.
Mm-hmm.
So I stopped, pulled over, and went down and dug them out. As a lady and her kids, they were buried in snow. The only thing that I saw was the red taillights. But here's another thing. A lot of times, Stephen, I'm sent into places I should not be at. And when I found that lady, I got off the interstate. I was on a secondary road going probably up to Akron.
Mm.
Something made me get off the highway, get on the secondary road, took me right to that spot.
Wow.
So this is, you read my book. I saved a lot of lives where, like I said earlier, God needs to have somebody on earth in real time.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm calling it a land angel, a ground angel. So to make something happen as far as to save someone, God knows that you and your kids are stuck in this snowdrift, and you're going to die. You need help. So how I figure it out is that lady, that family has angels. The angels see that they're the lady's in trouble.
Yeah.
Probably they call my angels. I'm in the area and I'm diverted to go to that spot.
Wow.
I was able, and back then we didn't have cell phones. We had CB radios. So, and the communication back then with a CB radio at truckers is really intense. Everybody helps everybody. So
yeah.
I was able to muster up a bunch of help, a bunch of trucks came and stuff like that. So this went on year after year after year. Just being able to, there's a story in my book I want to touch on, that body that I found at the zoo.
Yeah.
On the zoo, like 1 o'clock in the morning. God set me up to stage me over there by 10 o'clock that night. Be in the area. And then it was a few hours later, 1 o'clock in the morning, I found that body, the girl. And, the only way I can explain that is she had angels.
Wow.
Watching over her and needed somebody, some human to intervene and come and help her. And that's why I was staged in that area. That shooting in LA, that was with the Crips and the Bloods, where I saved that one lady. And I've had guns in my faces, knives in my throats. I've had all kinds of weapons.
Yeah.
aimed at me. You know that verse in the Bible, no weapon formed against you shall prosper. I'll tell you what, I got a lot of stories to verify that's true.
Yeah, well, you tell a lot of those stories in this book. Something told me the subtitle of this book, Waikiki, is Against All Odds. What are you trying to communicate to readers with that subtitle?
The incidents I get involved in are so hairy. And I'm by myself, I got no weapons. The odds of me saving that person or people are 0 to none. They're going to die and I'm going to die. And for me to go step into that incident, to like that lady in that story in East LA, that was in Belmont Heights, where the Bloods and the Crips are always having their battles. Those are really two bad gangs. And they were heavily armed and I had nothing. The odds for me to get that lady out of there, basically 0.
Wow.
But I was able to step in and the voice is telling me, don't worry, you get out of this. There's another incident on the big island of Hilo, big island of Hawaii, a town called Hilo, where I was sent to this one area. I know not why I was there. It was the Super Bowl 1980 something, Dallas against New England. I wasn't into the game or both teams either. I went there and watched the game, and then that night I was at my sister's house. The phone rings about 4 o'clock in the morning, and I could hear screaming on the phone. My sister says, "Hey, this guy's in trouble. You better get down there. Something's going on." And I walked down there in the dark, about a quarter mile. I hear all this yelling going on in the house. I'm looking in the window. The guy has his family tied up. The wife's tied up. The babies are tied up with all kinds of, I don't know, telephone line or whatever. He's over there in front of their face, sharpening knives. He's going to dissect them and cut them. And he was serious. He had been, I don't know, strung out on ice or something, some kind of drug. He's going to kill the whole family.
Wow.
I had to intercede. I had no weapons. I made my way around the back of this house, got in, the back door was open, got in there, and it was a pretty bad situation. The girl in that incident, the young girl who was tied up, I'm going to say she was probably 9 at the time. Well, her and I had a meeting a few months ago. She's in her 30s now, or 40s. She wants to tell the story publicly because her mother was a big time entertainer, well known in the radio and television world in the islands. Okay, so the daughter wants to write the story, and she says, "Uncle, how did you do this?" I said, "Why?" She said, "Parents came at you with 5 knives, and they saw you disarm him 5 times. How did you do this?" You know, so in all these situations, I'm against all odds. How am I going to save that family? This guy's heavily armed with all kinds of butcher knives and whatever, and I got nothing. What are my chances to intercede in there? What are your chances, Stephen, if you're walking down the road and you see somebody about to get murdered right in front of you? What would you do?
Oh gosh, I hope I never had that experience.
This has happened to me many times. It's like that story in East LA and Belmont Heights. Something put me in that situation. Now, what would you do? Now, somebody's about to get murdered right in front of you. Are you going to run and hide? Can you call the cops? You're going to find a stick, a pipe? What are you going to do? Are you going to try and intervene and help this person? A lot of people will say, "No way, I can't do it." Well, I go right into it.
Wow.
This has happened so many times, but it's because of this gift I have that's backing me, and I'm hearing the voice saying, "You can do this."
That's amazing. And I want people to go to your book and get through some of these stories. But I want to ask you one more question. What do you want readers to learn from your experience? What if you could give us a brief synopsis of what you want readers to walk away after reading this book?
Okay, that's a great question. We are all of us are born with gifts. You might have, the Holy Spirit gives out 8 or 9 gifts. You might have 3 or 4. I might have 4 or 5. But one of the gifts we have is an angel always with us on our shoulder. It's that soft, still voice coming from inside of you, telling you something. What I would like my readers to learn, and I stress this to a lot of people, there's a voice talking to you. You need to listen to it. What if that voice is telling you, hey, you better get upstairs and check on the kids? Maybe you better look out in the yard, see if maybe the dog got loose. Or maybe you come to a fork in the road and it's telling you, don't go that way. It's that still small voice inside of you. We all have this voice. Not everybody is listening. You need to listen to this voice and react to it because it's there for your safety. It's guiding you. It's telling you something. So if there's any one thing, the reason I wrote that book is because there's a message in there.
Yeah.
The voice of the Holy Spirit, God, angels, it's real. And from that time I saved that kid when I was 8 years old, Stephen, the Holy Spirit and the angels had my number from that day on.
Wow, that's great.
And it's still happening.
Yeah.
I'm 73 and it's still going on. And it's like, please, God, can you not put me into any more physical rescue?
Well, look, I'm glad you've been in those situations to be of service to the people that you help to save. Waikiki, it's certainly been a pleasure being with you today. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
I totally enjoyed this.
Okay.
Totally enjoyed this. And I'm glad we could hook up and do this. So
yeah, and I hope people, look up this book, try to find it, because there's some terrific stories there. So
yeah, the book's been out since 2005, and it's actually on a resurgence as people wanting it, and stuff. So, and I've been able to give talks about the book, to schools and in the women's prison, in the men's prisons, and all over. And I'm actually looking to give more talks about this.
That's fantastic. Okay, very good. But look, thank you so much again for being with us. You've been listening to the Possibility Action Network podcast. Our guest today has been Waikiki Wonder. He is the author of Something Told Me. I'm your host, Stephen Middleton. Until next time, good day.
You are not alone, just keep